worship? No, just, no. Like, what department, like, what's your worship history in the house as far as, like,
okay.
leadership and involvement?
Hello, my name is Mary Lynn Benitez. I've been here since 1998. Wow. Started, as I mentioned yesterday, by profession, I'm a ballroom dancer. As you can tell, not an active ballroom dancer right now. Now I'm a coach, a judge, an adjudicator, which means I judge the competitions, and I also certify people that want to be certified dance instructors for the Fred Astaire Association. My attention here to the arts has been in connection with Danielle. The Lord put me connected with Danielle as we sought the Lord for what does it mean to revive the arts for the Lord? What does it mean to express praise and worship? And we've been on a journey of exploration and discovery and pushing the prophetic in the arts. And even though I've stepped off of being active in the front, my heart is to see where God has it to go. So I still want to stay connected and do whatever I can to make that happen.
Hi, I'm Ashley Hartwell. Hey. Let me think. I started at Jubilee. It's been, I think, 10 years now. And I joined the dance ministry maybe the year after I started here. And I'm over the dance ministry at this point. But I also am just extremely passionate about all things worship. So there's just things that I think once you're a part of a ministry that is worship-minded, you're very aware of all aspects of it. In this house anyways, he starts to kind of discipline you and make you aware of, beyond the dance, beyond the song. And then in 850, I do get to lead worship there. Because God has given me different giftings. And so learning how to flow with the Holy Spirit is something that I had to learn so I could teach. And so that's something that I do here in the house.
All right. I'm Trey McClendon. And I came to Jubilee in 2004 as a 18-year-old mess and a half. 2 halves, so I guess that's 2 holes. Yeah, it was. I didn't join the worship team right away. I had come from being used in worship, really. I grew up singing a lot. I mentioned that yesterday. But I wasn't really invested in as a worshiper because my life was ridden with sin and perversion, and nobody cared about what was in my heart. They just cared about what came out of my mouth. So even though my life was a mess, I would get pulled out on Easter or Mother's Day and sing a song, and was a part of a youth worship team. So I came here knowing that worship was something too precious, that I wasn't just going to treat it like a commodity you could buy on a shelf. And then after being here for a few months, I joined the worship team in a new broken way, and on this journey of believing not that I had to be perfected, but that there could be a purity and an intention. And so as that did, I got broken over and over again by leaders, by Jesus, in a good way, and am one of the worship leaders here, and have really stepped into and walk in the calling of a psalmist, and really just letting the Lord move in prophetic flow. And I like to write, and I love the people of Jesus in worship. He's given me a heart. There's nothing, I can get all my personal worship all the time, love it, but I get more amped when we all go there together, because it blows my mind. So anyway, that's me. I've been in youth worship, I've been in big worship, I've recorded some stuff, and still here. Worship on wheels now, that's what I call people. Until I'm walking again, I'm just worship on wheels, so this can't stop me.
Hello, I think I'm the newest here. My name is Alex. I'm from Brazil. I came here 2016, and I was a music producer in Brazil, working with worship music, worship artists, involved with worship teams my whole life, I think. And here at Jubilee, I help the worship team leading the band, writing some arrangements, helping the worship leaders. And I think about worship, I think is more like a lifestyle than a life status. Is worship is my everyday, not only when I'm on the stage. And yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. My name is Danielle Lawrence, and before Jubilee, I have a background in color guard and competitive winter guard. And even from a young age, I always was very inspired by the arts, or what could happen when you hear music, like what you can see. And then I became an instructor of that, with an emphasis on like general visual effect of things that would move and happen in sync in the atmosphere, if that makes any sense. But I've been at Jubilee since 1996, and along with Mary Lynn, we started creating dances and creative pieces to music here in about 1998. And last night, I actually was thinking about how every single conference for 19 years that I personally have had my hands in every single thing that's been presented on this stage, as far as creative wise, until last night. And Hannah and Sierra, who choreographed that dance, I had absolutely nothing to do with that, which is really, really amazing. I just had to throw that out there. But yes, I know. We've led the dance and done creative things here for years. I would definitely say that not just dance or what happens creatively. I'm a worshiper. I live for moments that happened last night in worship. You cannot ever, you can't ever explain that, and you can never get that moment back. But I live for those moments, and seeing and creating pictures of what worship looks like, and what it sounds like, what it looks like, how it all connects together. And so when you think about the throne of God, you think about all the things that are going all around, and all the colors, and the elders bowing down, and the crowns, and all this. I literally visualize all of this stuff, and that's why I love worship so much, not just the dance, but just everything and how it connects together. And I have a heart to see that happen. So it's never been about just leading the dance ministry, but about seeing that happen on a scale that, when people experience it, forever changes their lives.
Hello, how you doing? I'm Karina Miller, and I am part of the worship team. Been here at Jubilee since 1996. This is where I met my husband, who's super awesome, and have no training whatsoever in singing or choir or anything. Which is very humbling, because I'm surrounded by like super qualified people here. And but God also brought me to this amazing house where I was able to grow in a gift that I really didn't think that I had, and that I was given the freedom really to step up and be who I was called to be. And that's the beauty of being part of a house. Not just a church, but a house and part of a family, that you're allowed to grow, that you're pushed to grow and to be who you are called to be.
Amen. Oh, okay.
Okay, regarding excellence in art, professional versus volunteers, how do you balance the push for excellence with the constraints of volunteers? So basically what he's trying to say is, how do you push for the degree of excellence you do with the constraints and the limitations that some of the people who volunteer have?
You know, that's in the end, it becomes a heart issue. Because if you are not investing in what you're volunteering in, you're basically giving an empty sacrifice. So you do the best you can with what you have. And this house has resources to help you improve skill. As I was listening to Karina, you know, I have only seen all that she's presented to us in her worship. But all of a sudden I remembered a time years ago when she decided to take a step. Actually, it was the same step that Trey took. And it was to learn music and chords. And it was because she had a calling to be a psalmist. And Trey knew he had a calling to be a worship leader, and he had to know the tools. And they invested their time and energy in taking lessons. And you know what? There were people here in the house that were willing to give of their time and energy to support that. The thing is, when there's a will, there's a way, and that's the truth in the world. And the things that keep us from that are usually the things that keep us in bondage. Fear, fear of failure, fear of finances, fear of all kinds of stuff. That's usually what tends to happen. But the term excellence just means that you're striving for something you've not done before, something better. And then you make a step. It doesn't matter what the step is, you take the step. God will honor that. Does anybody else have something to say?
Lord Jesus, they got me working these hands.
Brittany can help.
You're good.
Getting the exercise.
I'm right now in my life, I'm living this experience of volunteer. Since I had my first chance to do music professionally when I was 18. I was invited to test at the studio for a worship singer, and then has been 21 years doing only music my whole life. And then I came here and to not live doing music, but my whole life I think about when you're doing something for God, you have to do with all of your heart. I don't think about that I should be rewarded by God or by church or by anyone else about what I do. But I know I will do my best. That doesn't matter how or what God's gonna supply from another source, But for me, if I know God called me, I will do it with all my heart, and God's gonna give me for another source, and yeah.
I just want to say one thing to that. You know, because ministry and because church, and especially in a supernatural house, and you're in a charismatic movement where we believe in, miracles and God's grace is so, we don't limit it. In a house like this where our leaders don't try and put limits on watching God, we step out on the far reaches of faith and believe in big. There are often times that it's like, well, the heart, I'll just speak to the heart is awesome, but it's like, let's say I really, really have a heart. I mean, we can just like put it on something really technical. Like, I hardcore have the heart to be a pilot. My heart, I mean, I'm in the air. I'm there. I'm soaring in the sky. Let's all go get on the plane. I'll take the controls.
I'm not going with you.
No, exactly. But, okay, Trey, you're dramatizing. You're talking about singing. No, but you know what? Flying a plane is not near as important as ushering in the people into the presence of God. Now, does that mean we have to be perfect? No. And I'll be honest, this man, like, there was some good cultural confrontation when he got here in the demand that it put on our worship team, because what he brings in a skill excellence, also an incredible heart purity. His heart is so pure to serve and to see the Lord move. But what he brought, which for us, like free-floating hippie, never have a boundary, we realize that prophetic doesn't mean unprepared.
That's good. That's good.
And the truth is, a lot of times, the more prepared does not mean an agenda. Prepared does not mean unmovable boundaries. Prepared does not mean my way, not God's way. No, prepared means equipped. Prepared means intentional. We said that word so much this week. Yeah. And as prepared as I am, it's the same way, before I give a speech or before I do a presentation, there are people that are good at off the cuff, but if you take someone who has prepared for something and prepared, not only for one night, but a lifestyle of preparation, and it's what Mary Lynn said. As much as it means to you is what you're going to put into it. So I was saying all that to say with professional versus volunteer is because it's quote unquote, it's just worship team. And people, pastors that come in and out of our house, and it's not to toot our own horn, but we have people come speak at conference and they'll ask like, man, your worship team is so passionate and so dedicated, and we're seeing the same 8 people 15 nights in a row singing and dancing and doing, are they on staff here? And no one is paid for worship. No one. And I don't know that if our general house knows that. It's completely volunteer. And so the biggest thing is, just because it's church doesn't mean it should be cheap. And I've offended people that and we think cheap should get by because it's church. And the truth is, I've had people come and audition, and our response to them is vocally like, hey, look, I hear the heart, but the truth is, on our worship services, there is a leader and 3 other people on a microphone. I can't have you almost being able to match pitch. I love your heart, but it's not strong enough. If your heart is what it is and it's something, guess what? Go invest a couple of $100s over the next few months in some vocal lessons. And then if you come back and the truth is, your heart, you've only think, well, I can't get the skill to match your heart. Let's find a place to put that heart in action somewhere. So anyway, invest in what it is. Hold on, somebody, look, see?
If we want to answer the questions, we can't do like we gotta.
All right, go. Sorry.
We're not doing a sermon.
It's bad, I know. You have preachers up here.
As a Christian living in a family where they don't live or understand your lifestyle, how do you balance giving all to God but not compromising your beliefs and spirituality? As a Christian living in a family where they don't live or understand your lifestyle, how do you balance giving your all to God but not compromising your beliefs and spirituality? And so the example on here is participating in things that they do but you don't want to do them, or necessarily maybe they don't.
Okay, so coming to Jubilee initially, I have to just tell you guys, my mom said Jubilee was a cult. She told everyone that who asked. I went to a cult, and Jubilee had me. They had me, type of thing. But you know what? You let your lifestyle speak for you. I didn't argue with her. I didn't try to defend Jubilee. I didn't try to explain Jubilee to her. I continued to let God do what he was doing in me. And you know what she does now? She sends people to Jubilee. She brags about Jubilee. She likes to tell everyone, you know, my daughter and my son-in-law, they're pastors at Jubilee. For 8 years, I begged her to come to a Freedom Weekend. She came to a Freedom Weekend. I mean, I didn't have to, she could see it. She could see the evidence of what God was doing in my life through this place, and she couldn't argue with that. So I wasn't going to put myself in a situation, you know, I remember Pastor B used to tell us all the time that when you have an experience with the Lord, you don't have to argue. You're never subject to an argument. So I'm not gonna argue. I will never argue or defend what happens in this house because I don't have to. Now I ain't gonna let you just talk crazy about my church or about my pastor, about anybody up in here. But as far as me having to try to explain to you why I'm at church 6 days a week for the conference, why I didn't get home until after midnight last night, all that stuff, I'm not doing it. I don't have to do that. I know God's called me here to be a part of what's taking place in this house. And if I know that that is my truth, then that's what God has me doing. You don't have to understand to obey, okay? So you might not always get it even for yourself, like, dang, I'm not even 100% sure why we have to be here all night. And I have 5 children, and if I was here, guess where they were at? Right here. Many a nights, my children were sprawled out on these chairs with a cover cloth to cover them. I made no apologies for that. As a matter of fact, I remember Trey, the very first time before I even joined the dance ministry, and I'm gonna wrap it up, we were at a fellowship, and it was late, and he was leaving, and he said, hey, we're about to go to the church and just have spontaneous worship. You should come. And I was like, oh, well, we'll see. I'll think about it. Back then, I was really quiet. I didn't really talk to people. I kind of just watched. I know it's hard to believe, but that's how it was. But I got in the car, and I remember thinking, I'm not going to that. I have my children. Dee was in Iraq, and I was like, it's just too late. That's not what a good mom does. And I remember the Holy Spirit said, I never gave you those children to be an excuse. And I was like, oh, okay. So I brought him, put him on the chair, and I had an experience with the Lord that began to change my life and help me to see my connection to the dance ministry before I had no idea that I would be where I am. So.
I don't know if we're actually still on the question, but saying what Ashley said, I just wanted to say, Hannah is a product of exactly what she's saying. Yeah, there's a lot of kids here that are a result of that. I remember I was on my way back from the Bahamas one time. We went to do a worship conference. Isn't that a horrible place to do a worship conference? And I was on the plane, and I had such an experience with God, and I'll never forget this moment. And I was crying, and I was like, God had all these amazing words spoke over me, like, you're going to go here, and you're going to do this, and you're going to lead that. And I'm like, you know, my children were really young. I don't even know. They were like 2 and 3, and they're, you know, close to go. I was like, God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be a mom? And how am I going to do this? And he said, it's all connected. He said, you can't separate it. He said, they will discover their calling within your calling. You don't wait until they grow up to become who you're supposed to be. They will find out who they are being with you as this whole thing happens together. And it was at that moment that I made a decision that wherever I go, they'll go, and they're just going to be here, and they're going to be, and just, you know, and I'm sorry, I know I sound like I'm bragging on her a lot, but even like with the art and the dance, there's not one time I ever sat down with her and said, this is how you do this. Not one single time. I didn't even know she was really doing all that choreography and doing that. She never said, I knew that they were working on it, but I never sat down and gave her a map and said, this is how you worship. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. It happened because she was in the atmosphere, so I never separated. I just got here. You know, I just brought them here, so.
Really quick, when it comes to not compromising with your family members or friends outside of church, you have got to depend on the Holy Spirit. You cannot compromise yourself as a worshiper. So what that might mean sometimes is, like, if I'm at a wedding, a family wedding, and they are turning up, because in my family, you drink or drown. That's just what you do. You know, everyone gets tore up. It's a badge of honor to be able to hold your liquor. We laugh and brag about who couldn't hold their liquor. That's just kind of what you do. Well, clearly, I don't do that anymore, okay? Like, I don't get wasted. There was a time when I did, because culturally in my house and in my family, that's what you did. That was acceptance. They were proud of me, and I craved that. But you cannot compromise yourself for that, and you don't have to explain that. You can just, hey, you want something to drink? No, I'm good. Laugh and talk with them, and at any point you get a check in your spirit that you need to transition or leave, you have to go. And you have to trust that the Holy Spirit is going to take care of your relationships, and that he's going to take care of those things. And so there was a season of time where there was distance between me and my family, which made it look more like I was in a cult. But the Lord restored all of those relationships, and I have more influence in their life than I ever had before when I was doing what they wanted me to do. And I never had to argue that or pull out my Bible and say, right here it says you don't get drunk and all that. My lifestyle produced and opened up the door for my witness to not be compromised. Does that make sense? So I'm sorry, she reminded me that I didn't answer that second part.
My work schedule is such that I work some weekends and evenings. If I want to be a part of the worship team, do I have to be here every Sunday? And what days of the week do you meet for practice?
This will be a quick one. Yay. You know, I understand work schedules. Let me answer the practice thing. We practice on Thursday nights. The way joining the worship team looks is this. First, you have an audition. I normally invite vocalists and or musicians to come to a practice that they're going to audition at. I invite them, come at the beginning of practice. Your audition normally follows practice, and it will include myself as the vocal director, Alex as the music director, Wilfredo and Jessica, sometimes Jaliel as well. But I always encourage them, come, look at what a practice looks like. The way we run practices practices are from 6:30 to 8:30 for the first hour. The musicians are in here, the vocalists go to a different room, and we practice them. For the last hour, we come together. That practice focuses on whatever Sunday material we're doing. It used to be that everybody on the worship team had to come every Thursday. Now it's, if you're on schedule on Sunday, you come. As opposed to one Thursday a month, we have a meeting called All In, where we all come in to worship together and to pray and encourage one another. So Thursday nights, so let's say you come audition, we respond to you and say, hey, we really feel like, your skill. What we look at first is your heart. We ask like, hey, have you been to a Freedom Weekend? Have you started going to Growth Track? Have you been to Discovery? Have you been to Practical Ministry? Those are the first things that we're going to care about first, because it's like I can hand, Adele could come in, and Lord knows we'd all love for her to have a microphone, but I don't need her voice to get the people of God to get somewhere as much as I need her heart and her voice to get the people of God somewhere, I'm not trying to move y'all by emotion. I'm trying to move you by the Spirit of God. So that's what Thursdays. Then once you're in, once we like give you the, hey, we really feel like your skills either at a place where it's ready, or maybe we say, you know what, we need to work on some things. We do basically as a fleece of faithfulness to say, hey, look, okay, we do about a 6 to 8 week where we say, come every Thursday. Make it a point, because I can't tell you how many people have come and been like, they have incredible voices. It looks like on paper their hearts are there. They come to maybe one Thursday and never see them again. And there are some ministries where you can walk on. I mean, you've got the scholarship to just walk straight on, and that's just not how we are. We take the word. Pastor B laid the foundation of this house. He takes worship way too serious for us to try to just get. And it's not doing you a favor to say, hey, we know nothing about your life. Take this microphone and act like, So what happens is after you attend, and basically there is understanding in that if you have a night schedule, that's just a communicate thing, a weekend schedule. Hey, I can't be at church twice a month, but I'm in this Connect group, and I'm a part of this ministry, and you can talk to this leader, and they know exactly what's up and what's going down with me. It's not that I'm just not here. And I can't be at that Thursday, and I might not can make 6 or 8 weeks in a row, but out of these 6 or 8, I can be at these 4. Or is there a way that I can make sure I'm at these? Can I show that I'm in this for the right reason? It's not like if you can't meet this rigid pattern, but that's the way it looks. And then after, we watch for church attendance. Do you only come when you're scheduled? Once people get on schedule, it's a red flag for me if I only see you in this building when your name is on that schedule to be up there. It's going to take the first time I'm going to say, hey, didn't see you this week, we're on schedule. The next time it's going to, excuse? Because you're not only here when the spotlight's on. because that means that you're only Jesus when the spotlight's on, and that's not good. So to say, that's workability, communicate. It's a team. I want to develop whatever gift, and if you've got something and the thing that's holding you up is a work schedule that the Lord you're finding is you've prayed, there's no way out right now, that shouldn't stop you. It's not so rigid that you can't make it happen. So just communicate. Yeah.
Just about practice, I used to say our Sundays, it starts on Mondays. Because when we receive we receive the list of the songs we're gonna have on Sundays, and we receive the songs and we start to prepare, do our homework, and we come here on Thursday prepared to just adjust or play the songs, be familiar, but we start on most of the time on Mondays to be prepared.
For dance, it's a little different. Concept-wise, it's the same. Communication is going to be important. We practice every Monday night, and that is non-negotiable. You got to be here. We do, like, I have some people who, like, they don't get off until, like, right at 6, and so it takes them about 15, 20 minutes to get here. That's all good, again, because I do know what's going on with them. But it's the same thing. You can't not be here when you're not on the schedule. You can't get done dancing and then leave, church, which we've had issues with that before, and you have to be in that same process he was talking about, freedom weekends, practical ministries, accountable to people. If you are a youth, you need to be active in your youth group. If you are an A50 age group, you need to be there and active there. There has to be someone discipling you. All these things are important because of the fact that as a worship ministry, what is going on outside of here is as impacting on your worship as whatever you do to prepare to be here on that Sunday, if that makes any sense. So we're concerned about more than just your skill and your ability. We're concerned about your life. And if one of us are leading you, you're going to know because we're in your business. I mean, I'm looking at your Instagram, your Facebook, your Snapchat, all of that. I'm going to address it and confront it. Like people are laughing because they already know. They done been confronted. It's been addressed. But that's not because I have it. Like, I just have nothing better to do with my life. If y'all know, I'm busy. I am extremely busy, but I am invested in your destiny. So if I'm going to be in this position, then that's part of what comes with it, is being committed to seeing you reach where God is taking you. It's not a personal thing for me. My destiny and my purpose is mapped out for me, and that's not going to be compromised. But me making sure that in the position God's placed me, I'm a good steward of those people that he brings to me, has everything to do with everything. So that's why we do that, guys. Like, we're intentional about being in your business and making sure you're in that process because we really care. We've seen it prostituted out in other places. It will not be prostituted here. You could be the most skilled dancer, and I don't have background in training and dancing. You could be a better dancer than me. You could do the leaps in the back, all of that, and you will never touch the front of this stage ever. And if your life is jacked up, you won't. And I will sit you down in a heartbeat if that means that if I find out you're living sinful and we're not in a process, you will not be serving in a worship ministry here. It will not happen.
I've had people hand me their CD and they still ain't touched the microphone here. Sister?
We won't compromise worship.
Trying to find.
Can't go from the altar to the club and act like, nope. All right, this will be the last one, and then we're going to, and I'll say this, let's do this last one, and then, because we need to get to where we're going. But if you wrote a question, didn't get answered, you kind of find, you can hear heart, I think you could bring your question to any one of us, but if it's got a specificity to it, find them during this weekend, later in a break. If it's something you really want answered, find that person you feel like would be best to answer and get it answered if it's important.
In your experience, have you been called to an area of worship where different talents were unused? The second question is, does God give gifts that are not to be shared on a large scale? So I think maybe that's supposed to describe the first question. Okay.
Can you talk louder? That mic is loud.
In your experience, have you been called to an area of worship where different talent was unused? Does God give gifts that are not to be shared on a large scale?
that's not a problem with a gift, it's a problem with submission. So, sorry. No, God will not give you a gift. Oh gosh. That you are not supposed to use, but he wants worshipers that are submitted. And believe me, there have been moments that I wanted to go off the tangent because God is speaking something to me. I go and I talk to Trey and I say, hey Trey, I'm feeling this. Or I go to Will and I say, hey Will, I'm feeling this. And he's there like, no, that's not where we're going. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm still worshiping Jesus. Because first of all, as a worshiper, I have to be submitted to my leaders. End of the story. And if the direction that our leaders are going is this, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but it's like the Bible says nothing about me having to agree with my leaders, but it does say that I have to submit to my leaders and just trust God. That's my job. So it's not about your gift really, but it's about your heart and you submitting your gift with a heart to the Lord.
When Jesus walked past the fig tree, he said, give me figs. What did the tree say? He said, it's not my season. But Jesus created that tree. So why would Jesus ask for something that the tree could not give him? And what happened when he didn't give it to him? It died. So Jesus gives you something to give back. That's the reason he created it.
I have something I can add really quick. And
It's not my season.
okay. Just because I want to make sure we're hitting this question, because I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's like you're saying I have a really unique ability, or like I have the gift of origami. Like I'm not making light and making fun. I'm saying like I'm kind of reading between the lines. Like I'm really good at like blowing smoke rings. I'm like saying there are people that are like, I have like I crochet really well. How can that, I can do it with glow sticks and I'm not belittling. I'm really not. It sounds silly, but like I'm saying if you're talking about a specific thing, like what are you talking about, my voice, or like, because if you're talking about does God give me this voice and then it doesn't get to get used on a large scale, then that's getting addressed by what she's saying. Yeah. But if you're talking about I have this really specific thing that is so dear to me and so real to me that I'm like, I just believe it should be, when the Lord and I are in my room and I dress up in my porcupine costume and or whatever, or I do tumbling or whatever, it's like, that doesn't always mean no, maybe, and it's not about, well, they don't make room for it, well, they just don't understand. It's not that, and it's not that we're so bound by tradition that church has to look like this. Maybe there is a place, maybe, but I can tell you this, if your heart is honest and your heart is humble and your heart is submitted, if there is a place, it will be found. You don't find that place, your heart creates that place. And what I'm reminded of is the sons of Aaron when they offered strange fire and they just went and did worship without the permission of the authority. Bruh, and what happened? Burnt up. God's not having it. And that's not like, well, if your worship's not controlled by the people whose name is on the bulletin. No, that's not it at all. Bruh, listen, there's anything I learned that as I submit to leadership, it creates... Does it surrender and submission for me? Absolutely. But guess what it is? It is security, honey. Because it ain't on my head if we miss it. Guess what? That's the truth. I might be feeling something in a service. I remember as Angela was training me, I remember plenty of times where like I would go and say, hey, I'm hearing this, hey, I'm that. And she'd be like, not right now. And as I watched, and there would be ends of worship services where I would be under other worship leaders who aren't here anymore. And I'd whisper, hey, I feel this. Or the Lord would just tell me, hey, I feel this. And I wouldn't say anything. And we might have missed the moment, you feel like. And it feels good to leave that moment and say, like, I felt like we should have gone here. I might have voiced it. We didn't go there. But you made that call, boo-boo, not me. And that's for Jesus to deal with, not for me to deal with. And seriously, and Pastor, I will tell you this, I tell people all the time, as a prophetic worship leader in this house, and one of the main worship leaders and psalmist here, the number one person who trained me in worship was Pastor Ballinger. Seriously. Could no one could manage and put government and safety around the presence of God and fix it. And so I say that to say, does God give gifts? Here's my question to you is, just because God gives a gift, are you saying that it's that he did wrong if it doesn't get used in front of a lot of people? Because like Bethany and I do a lot of the aesthetics and decoration when it comes to conference. Like we redo the stage set. We often do a lot of the four-year installments. This is Sky Valiant's first time she's now over the arts team, and she and Melanie had like texted saying, we're going to do this giant cocoon and it's going to be in the middle. And I'm not going to lie, I was like, okay, cocoon it up. And I know Melanie is crafty, and I had seen Sky paint, but I hadn't seen, I'm being honest, like who would have ever thought this? Seriously, this is a perfect deal. I'm really good at being super crafty. Well, I can't pull you up in church and let you be crafty during worship. But let me tell you what is happening in that thing now and what's going to unfold over the next 24 hours is going to minister to the congregation. It's the best way I can say. And when they brought that idea, it was humble and it was submitted. It was saying, hey, this is what we feel. And yes, Melanie and Sky both, what do you think? Absolutely. And even mine, Bethany's response was, I hear it. I don't fully understand it. And our response was, but I can guarantee you, if it gets presented and created as something that Angela and Lynn don't really feel like cohesive, they won't let it be there because they'll protect what's happening. So submit the heart and it will make the way for the gift. But if you have something unique, she was talking about excellence. She said excellence is believing for something different. I am definitely not of the one that it's like, if we've never seen it before, doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. If you've got origami, that you have a way that God can do it, we can do it. Danielle's hung fabric from the ceiling and thrown it literally to every corner of this room. Okay? If there is ever a church that will go out on a limb for weirdness, you have found the place. But she did ask. So anyway, I hope that I wanted to answer that if it's a peculiar thing or if it's a unique thing, not just I have a thing that nobody lets me do. Does that make sense?
And if it's like a multiple gift thing, like you can sing and you can dance and you can paint and you can draw, like all of those three things that you can't do all at the same time here in this house, continue to grow and develop those gifts, and God will show you when and where to use those different things. So like for me, I was always torn between song and dance because I feel like I can sing, and like the Lord would give me songs like during worship and all that. And but he told me dance. He told me to go to dance. My preference would have been worship team, but he told me to go to dance. So I continue to like let God prune me in that place, and I'm still developing that gift, but he opens up other arenas for me to do that. So continue to grow those other giftings. He doesn't give you that for no reason, okay?
Before Karina comes, because I want to go off of her own little introduction while she's not in here, how she says, I've never been trained in this, and that. Let me tell you what, I don't know, how many of you have noticed over the last 3 months, Jessica, I would probably say 3 months, there has been this new, really since the beginning of the year, but it seems like coming through you're right, the beginning of the year, there has been, if you've been here longer than that, there has been this intensification in our worship. Like something's really, like the heat has really turned up. And I will say, Karina might say, I've never been trained vocally, this and that, but if there's one thing, and the reason why she has not only the authority as an elder in the house to speak to this, but she is a woman of intercessor in fourth day of conference, you feeling it? Intercession and prayer and the word. And if you know her life, even at a glimpse, she is faithful after his presence. I mean, dedicated and disciplined in leaning into him. So what she shares, she has real life street cred and authority to speak to the identity of worship. And I say that to say that a lot of things that I know that, we've had in meetings, even Will and Jessica and myself and Karina, about really leaning into just real worship like never before. A lot of it has been pioneered and put pressure on by Karina. So as she shares this, I want you to know it doesn't just come out of, oh, well, everybody needed a section of scripture to divulge, but that this comes out of a very qualified, a very credentialed place in her life. And y'all give it up for Karina Miller.